So I feel like we are in this world and just this place where you're always trying to prove someone wrong or, maybe do something because your parents want you to do it or because it's what society expects of you or whatever it is. And I think whatever you want to do it for you.
Brooke Miccio, welcome to The Shift. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. I'm a very long time Quotes of Christy fan.
I am so excited as well. I feel like I have been following you for so long, and I'm like, why haven't you had her on the podcast yet? This is like long overdue. Long overdue.
Well, same likewise. I feel like I found your content so long ago, and then I saw I think that you had followed me. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm honored. Wow, so thank you.
No, the feeling is mutual. For those who do not know, those who aren't maybe watching and can see Brooke's beautiful face, but Brooke is a content creator, a lifestyle vlogger, and the co-host of a very popular podcast, Gals on the Go. I didn't know that you started creating content. I think I saw in 2008. Like, I went to your YouTube videos. Your first one was 13 years ago.
Yeah, and that's this channel. So I had another channel even before that where I was making silly little skits and music videos with friends. So I've been on the internet for a long, long time.
Oh, I cannot wait to chat with you about this. So before we do that, though, I did the little intro.
Yeah.
When you introduce yourself at a party, what do you say to people?
Honestly, it's still the dreaded question, which you would think and I am so proud of what I do and everything, but it's the title of it all to kind of sum it up because I feel like I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. So
Yeah.
I do a little bit of everything now, but actually I'm I usually say I'm a content creator and a podcaster, or I have a podcast and I do content creation on social media. It varies. I think I definitely tailor it to my audience. Am I talking to my parents' friends dinner party, or am I talking to am I meeting my boyfriend's friends? I think the answer changes a little bit.
Yeah, I think that summarizes it pretty well, though. I mean, then you can go deeper if people ask more questions. But
For sure.
I just want to know, how'd you get started then, all these years ago?
Yeah. So I was just a kid who was on the internet. I feel like I got a laptop and I was just poking around. I feel like I remember hearing when I was in elementary school, people talking about YouTube at school. And I was like,
yeah,
when I get home, I'm going to do some research. Found YouTube and just found at that time it was so small. I feel like every video that was posted was posted on the main page, I guess. And I started finding people who were around my age making videos. Like I said, mainly honestly, they're TikTok style music videos. So kind of lip syncing with cool edits or what I thought was cool at the time. Very now, you imagine oh wow, a jump cut, how crazy. But at the time it was totally insane. And I just was I can do this. So I picked up my parents' camcorder, and at first it was just point and shoot film videos. And then I had taught myself how to edit, and I kind of just got my foot in the door and just saw what stuck. Some of them are definitely cringe, embarrassing. Some of them are wholesome and sweet. I made a lot of the videos with some of my best friends who are still my best friends, which is really sweet. They're my home friends now. So it's cute that we have those as memories kind of to look back on. So I've just been, I feel like I was just a curious internet kid, and it paid off, I guess.
Absolutely. When did it start becoming more of a career for you than just for fun?
Yeah, I started making money in high school. But I did I had another job. I had a very just normal middle school, high school upbringing, and I worked in an ice cream shop, and I was working and I was starting to make some money from YouTube AdSense. And I think that was around the time that I got maybe my first brand deal, where someone was a company was hey, we're going to pay you this money to talk about our product. I couldn't believe it.
Were you so shocked?
So shocked. Explaining it to my parents, they were even more shocked. They were shocked. I was getting $50 checks in the mail, and they were from Google technically, because Google and YouTube were, same company, whatever. So they were what's coming in the mail? What is this? That's me explaining that to them.
So crazy.
Yeah. I definitely never expected it to pan out in this way that it did. I'm so, so grateful. I don't think I would believe it in the way of I would just be I can't believe that I was able to make something that I loved so much and was such a genuine hobby and interest of mine all throughout my life my career.
If you are listening to this podcast, you are probably a fan of inspirational quotes. And if that's the case, then you should check out my book. I feel that it's a cute little retro book with each chapter being a different emotion and then quotes that can help you with that emotion. So if you're looking to support me or the show, if you need a cute little gift for a friend or just something to flip through when you're feeling down one day, then this book is for you. You can purchase it at quotesbychristy.com, which is my website, or the link will be in the show notes. You had another like 9 to 5 for a
Right.
while, right after college. So, but now this is full time. When did that transfer happen?
Yeah, that and switch. I worked. It was a very short stint, I will say. So
Okay.
I was making videos all through college, doing social media all through college. The time to graduate kind of came around. I was like, let me just get it. Everybody get right. Like you look around at all of your peers in college. I went to like a great university, and everybody was kind of following like a very traditional path, like applying for like your first post grad job. So I kind of did the same. I was like, sure, let's do it. And I was definitely making money off of like good, was able to pay for my spring break, was able to, maybe buy myself a nice purse,
Yeah.
but it was never anything that I was like, oh, this is something that I could like truly, truly live off of. So I was like, but maybe if I do both, this could be like fun, side money, whatever. So I worked for a few months. I took a sales job in Boston and I started really sharing what being like a working content creator looks like. So like kind of like how I manage like my 9 to 5 and my like side pieces, like the podcast and doing YouTube and stuff like that. And the short answer is I did not manage it well. There was definitely a lot on my plate.
That sounds like
That
a
on
lot.
top of moving to a new city where I didn't know anyone, on top of just being like right out of college. It was just a lot all at once.
Yeah.
But luckily in that time, like my channel grew more than it ever has before, like truly exponential growth that I had never seen before from sharing, I think, my work experience and the transition sort of into like true adulthood. Um, so I worked for, like 5 months or something before I quit to do social media full time. And I was like, hey, let me just see, sort of how this pans out. And this was in 2019 and here we still are.
That is crazy. I mean, kind of hard to keep a 9 to 5 job when you're making good money, doing something that you're like super passionate about and doing it for yourself. The motivation would not be there for me.
Totally. And at that point, I wasn't just going to like stick it out just because it's the conventional thing to do,
Yeah.
I definitely made sure that I had like some financial security at first. And I knew like I'm not gonna be able to put this job on my resume. There were like some risks, I would say, but at the same
Yeah.
time, I'm glad I took that risk when I was 22, 23, because I had like that was at the point of my life where I was able to take risk like that.
Absolutely. How has it been then? I mean, I was just so shocked. I know that
Yeah.
I have been like an OG influencer, but I didn't know just how far back
Yes.
you really did go. How has it been like? You literally grew up on the internet and you're such a wonderful influencer because you like really, I feel like you know that people have followed you for a long time and you let people in. Like they are in your new apartment. They're in like your real life. But that must be very vulnerable as well. Like how have you juggled that?
Totally. I think it varies throughout different phases of my life too. And sometimes I feel like I'll wake up from like a nightmare and I'll be like, oh my gosh, I overshared. Oh my gosh, what am I doing? And then sometimes I just feel like more chatty because I'm like, oh, these are my best friends. Let me just, let them in.
Yeah.
So I think it fluctuates with like where I'm at in life and like kind of like what I'm going through, I would say. Um, but for me, I've always found that the vulnerability almost of like sharing all of that has fostered such like a greater connection, I feel like, with my audience. And no shade to people who like don't or, are more like focused on like a topic or something like that. But for me, I feel like it takes like the community building to the next level of being like, hey, this is
Yeah.
me, authentically me. And it creates stuff like there's a lot more feedback and like people who could, not find issue with you. But of course, when you share more, there's going to be people who might not resonate with like your message or something that you're talking about, whatever it is. But it's worth it for me for the people who do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just think what a cool thing. Like clearly you're someone who feels comfortable sharing that too. Like it's so true that like some people they feel like they're their best selves sharing
Mhm.
more on the internet. And some people they're like, no, that just doesn't feel right to me. But how beautiful that like you have a community of people that have literally seen you grow up. And for those who don't know, like a 300,000 plus YouTube subscribers, which like I feel like everyone knows YouTube subscribers are the hardest to get, like that have just like been growing up with you.
Yeah, it's really great. I will. My mom has always said, she's like, Brooke, you've always been an oversharer. Like ever since I was young, I feel like really yapping away. Like in middle school, I'd be like, everybody listen to me. Let me tell you the stories.
You were
So
born for the internet.
yes, truly. No, it has always been me. So it's not like totally out of character. I feel like when my teachers and people like found out that I did YouTube, they're like, it makes sense. Like they weren't like
Yeah.
her, like you know.
But that's, I think, like what is so amazing to other people is they can see, like you can see when it's like authentic to someone or when they're just like trying to do it for views or promotions or whatever it is. But like it always just seems like you're just being yourself, but on camera.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's been like such a journey, and I feel like I started at such a time when, quite literally, I didn't know that this could be a job. I didn't know that you could even make money. It was just
Yeah.
out of just finding it and just being like, hey, I have some time on my hands, and something new.
I love it. I love it. Well, the question of the show, I'm excited to hear your answer, is what's the best piece of advice that you've ever gotten?
Yeah. Well, I guess this kind of all ties in.
Oh, good. We love a
It's
full circle.
yes, for sure. So my mom is definitely like my role model, like the person who I look up to the most. We're super close. And she just is so inspiring to me. And I feel like I've seen her at a lot of like different stages of her life and her career and everything. And we've always been super close. But I feel like as I've gotten older, like even to that next level. And a message that she always like said to me and kind of, I feel like it embodied me like as I sort of grew up and like blossomed. And I'm like, I'm not sure if I was this person or if you inspired me to be this person. But she would always say like, put yourself out there, or you put yourself out there, like kind of inferring to me when I would, if, and that was in any way, if I would come home and be like, Mom, oh, like boys are being mean to me at school, she'd be like, well, Brooke, you put yourself out there and like this is, or she would say like, I think in the flip side of like the positive, if I were like, like I really want to do this thing, but like I'm nervous about it, she'd be like, put yourself out there. Like, that's like when you grow and that's when you like experience like such amazing things in life. And I think she was saying it from her perspective because she had put herself out there. She definitely is like, she is like my, like I said, my career inspiration, just my life inspiration. Like she really is one of those type of people who's like, everything you want is like on the other side. I guess that's like the better quote of it all, is that everything you want is like on the other side of your fear or whatever. But I feel like in more simple terms, it's just put yourself out there. And I've embodied that. I've tried to, at least in like not just career, but also with friendships. If I want to be friends with someone, I'll be direct. Sure. You want to hang out? Okay. And if it might not be like reciprocated, whatever. Dating, definitely too. I feel like it's just been like a facet of my personality at this point.
I love that. It's almost like the concept of like say yes to more things in life and just see where it takes you. And I think most of the time it takes you to good places. Maybe there's a flip side of that where like you don't want to say yes to too much. Like you were talking about
Definitely.
before the show. Maybe you said yes to like one too many things at
Yeah.
one point.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. You have to go through that though to realize, hey, I said yes to too much, because I feel
that's
like
true.
most people have the opposite issue, I think, where you're like more closed off. You're like, no, I'm not ready. I'm not, oh, I don't think I should do this. And it's like you have to, flip the script at one point, I think, and try something that maybe
Absolutely.
makes you feel a little uncomfortable.
Yeah. I feel like people have far more regrets about not being open enough than they do about being too open.
For sure.
Do you have a time of your life? So you said it's always come very natural to you to
Oh.
be more open, to be more vulnerable with people. But has there been a time in your life where it has been really scary to you and you went for it anyways and you put yourself out there and maybe it ended up well and maybe it ended up badly. But
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is like the epitome of dating. I feel like I would always like lead with like my emotions and be very direct. I don't know if we want to get like too zodiac on this, but I'm an Aries, so I feel like I'm
no, let's
very
do it.
upfront.
Hmm.
Yeah. What are you? What's your sign?
I'm a Gemini.
Oh, okay.
I don't know much about zodiac signs though. Is that like, is it a good, bad? I like don't even know.
My dad's a Gemini and he's great, so I feel like, it's good.
Okay, I'll
Yeah.
take it. I'll take it.
I don't know like too much. I feel like everyone knows, if you know it, you know about your sign, because like we're all self-serving, right? Like I'm like, oh, of
Yeah.
course, so Aries, me, haha. If you know, you know. Um, but I would say in dating, there were definitely times that I feel like, of course, like you get your feelings hurt, like if I'm direct and I lay my cards out on the table, and if I think it also comes into like emotional vulnerability a little bit too, and sort of yeah, putting yourself when you lead with, I feel this way, like strong feelings and stuff, you're gonna get people who don't necessarily feel the same way. But then I ended up, being I was definitely like the more forward one, I feel like, in my relationship with my boyfriend, and it paid off. We're together almost 3 years, and it's amazing. So I feel like it has paid off and it hasn't.
Yeah, absolutely. You before you were with your boyfriend, so you were in this, like, dating scene in New York,
Yeah.
which I'm sure is just chaos. All my friends in New York that are dating there, I'm like, it's like a full-time job. Like, literally, you have a full-time job on top of your full-time job, and there's just so many people there. It's so concentrated with young professionals. Was there a best piece of dating advice that someone gave you while you were in that season of your life?
Yeah. For me, it was like, honestly, I was just seeing it like, you're just gonna meet someone new. And it might be a friend, it might turn, it might be a boyfriend. It might be like, I think just seeing it as it could go any which way instead of like putting it
Yeah.
into a box. Because there were times that like I would go on dates and like, they definitely were like more of a friend, but maybe they introduced me to someone that like then they became like a good friend of mine, or maybe they put me in touch with someone that was a better fit or whatever. So I think just kind of like being a little bit more flexible with it. I was also so looking back, I mean, I still am young, like I'm 27, but when I was like peak dating, 23, 24, like I don't know why I was like, I need a husband immediately. Like that's ridiculous. Like I relax. Just like taking it seriously, It's not that deep.
Absolutely. It kinda goes back to your whole mission of being open, like, you just
Yeah.
kinda it doesn't have to be the love of your life, you could just be having dinner with a friend, and maybe sometimes we do put too much pressure on it.
Yeah, and I think girls, like, we definitely get in our heads, we're like, "Oh, well, if he buys me dinner," like, there's expectations, and it's like, absolutely not. That is completely false. Like,
Yeah.
you are definitely in the driver's seat here, and I feel like you need to, like, take back the power, sort of. And I wish that someone, like, charged me up that way before I was dating in New York and was like, "Girl, like, you have the decision here," you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have a worst piece of advice that you've ever gotten?
I feel like I've gotten this from maybe figures that are more of, like a professional figure or something like that. Like, I've definitely gotten advice of being like, just, handling rejection like with a smile, or kind of just don't let your emotions sort of like phase you or like cloud your judgment. I feel like sometimes
Mhm.
people give that advice where they're like, oh, who cares? Just brush it off. Or like, you can't let, you just have to press on and smile, whatever. But I think it's really important to feel your feelings. Like I said, it kind of all ties back in. I feel like it's important to have those losses and feel down and be like, hey, I had a bad day. Maybe you lost a deal, or maybe like had a tough conversation with a friend, like whatever it is. I feel like there's so much, just a lot of people are just so big on like feeling neutral these days. They're like, oh, who cares? Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't phase me. It's like, no, it actually did phase me and it did bother me. So I think
I love that.
it's important to like check in with yourself and feel your feelings. And, I think women, we always are given that advice of like, don't get emotional, don't let, and it's like, no, you're fully allowed to be emotional. Like, that you're a
Yeah.
human being. Like, that's normal.
Yes, life is emotional.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm definitely the type, like, I'm definitely getting better as I'm older, but I would be the type to like, if I'm in a doctor's office, like cry or something, which that's can be a
Oh.
sensitive time, I guess. But if I'm in like a tough, I feel like in tough meetings with like my accountant, I like start crying and he's like, what is going on? And it's like, I'm just a girl. I just am feeling my feelings. I don't know. I'm going through something. I guess you could see that as, I don't want to like say like weakness, but I feel like people have given me that advice before where they're like, ah, like
Oh,
you gotta be
100%.
tougher. You gotta,
Yeah.
it's like, no, I'm allowed to feel.
I'm allowed to feel. I love that. On that same vein, so has there been a time in your life where you have felt something very deeply? Maybe it's been one of the most challenging parts of your life so far. And what have you learned from feeling those feelings and that experience? What has it taught you?
Yeah. Well, we're getting deep. I feel like my like rock bottom was it was like slightly before COVID. So like early 2020 when I lived in Boston, I quit my job at this point. Um, I just was very lost, I think. I moved to the city where I like didn't know anybody, and I think like feeling of being out of college and like so far away from all these friends that I like had just spent the past 4 years with. And then I was away from my family. I was away from my home friends. Like I really just felt so in the dark. At that point, I didn't have coworkers because I worked for myself. So I just felt very lost, I think. I
Yeah.
was hanging out with even the people that I was hanging out with, like I was just not doing things that like I really align with, like that aren't like true to me. So I think that was like a time that, and I remember there was like a few times in there that I like few days specifically where I was so low and I was like, I don't even know how I'll ever like feel better. You know what I mean? Like I was just like, I guess this is just adulthood. Like this is just my life now. Like you're just sad, and you just feel lonely and you just, don't have anyone to turn to, whatever it is. Even though I did have people to turn to, I was like living on FaceTime and stuff, but you know how it is when,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Um, and I think I definitely did like a lot of journaling and like self work, and I tried to like, be like, hey, it's gonna get better, it's gonna get better. But like, I didn't know that it could get like as good as it is today. Almost, I feel like I had that mantra sort of in my head. I was like, it's gonna get better, it's gonna get better. Like I was just deep in feeling my feelings and having those moments, and well, then COVID happened, so it got even worse. But then it got better. So,
I think that is such a beautiful thought process. I didn't know that it could get as good as it is today. It reminds me, I think I posted a quote maybe a while back, but it says like, what if it all turns out even better than we imagined? And I've been thinking about that quote actually a lot recently. So it's just so funny that that's your story because it's true. Like when we're in those low moments, it's so hard to see a light at the end of the tunnel. But like, what if we knew that it would not only be a light at the end of the tunnel, it would be like a sunbeam. Like it would be even brighter than we ever thought. And I just don't think we think about that often. And it's really hard to when you're in those moments.
oh, it's so hard because I'm a very like temporary minded person, which I'm definitely working on. But I feel like I feel everything like presently in the moment, like very deeply, and it's hard for me to see anything. Like if I'm good, I'm good. If I'm not good,
Yeah,
it's hard for me to be, or if I'm stressed, and anxious or whatever it is, it's hard for me to like get out of that mindset.
I
I've
feel
like
that. Yeah.
worked through that in therapy, but besides that, I think that even just having a mantra or having a message or something like that to sort of remind yourself, even if it's like almost tricking your brain into thinking that, I feel like
Yeah.
that's what I did a lot of active manifestation at that time too. And I didn't even believe it to be true. Like everything that I was writing, I was like, it's 1 year from now and I'm so happy and I'm in a new city and I'm thriving. And I didn't believe the words as I was writing it, but I feel like it subconsciously like tricked my brain in a way that it actually did become true. So,
Yeah. No, absolutely. What would you tell that Brooke at that low point now being who you are today in the situation you're in right
oh my gosh, I would just say like you don't even sweat it. Like don't even sweat it. Like you're everything's gonna end up, like I said, so much better than you could even beyond imagine. I feel like even what I wanted, like when I was doing like the journaling pages and being like, I want to be happy in a new city and like with my friends and like see my family, whatever it was, like I was you'll achieve even beyond that and just feel so I think I just felt like very like chaotic. I think and all over the place, like just no stability. And now I feel like the most stable. I feel like I have just such good people around me and I feel so like just uh, blissful,
Hey, blissful is a beautiful word to describe a life. So that is a wonderful accomplishment on your part. I wonder what you would say to someone who is maybe looking to go into content creation or become an influencer, what have you. What have you learned? What's been your biggest takeaway from this journey as an influencer that you think might help other people who are interested in doing the same thing?
Oh, well, it's a great question. Yeah, and I feel like it's like that's the thing that everyone wants to talk about these days. Like, I want to be an influencer. Like, what advice would you
Yeah.
give me or whatever? Which it's so crazy because that's another thing with doing it as long as I have. Like, I went through all of the arcs of like, what are you post? What are you talking about YouTube? Oh my gosh, that's so weird. And now it's like everybody wants to do that as like their dream job. I kind of love that we've come so full circle
Yeah.
with. I feel like it
No,
used to be
you've seen it at every stage. Like,
yes.
I would love to just have a whole conversation with you on, like, how you've had to adapt with all of social media, literally. Like, it's a different beast than it was when you started.
Oh, 100%. And so many new apps and things. Like if you would have told me about TikTok when I was making these YouTube videos on my parents' JVC camcorder, I would be like, what is that? you know? No, I would say that start today. just start. Like, I feel like so many people are like, "Oh, I want to start," but like you make all of these excuses, "Oh, I don't have like a nice enough camera," or like, "Oh, I want to, but like I can't think of like my like what I want to talk about," or like I haven't quite like decided, something some sort of like you have some sort of bottleneck in the process where you're using that as an excuse. Stop
Yeah.
and just start posting, because everybody who is successful story is like, well, one day I just downloaded the app and started posting. Like, everybody who's successful has the same story, at least in the beginning. They're like, hey,
Yeah.
I just started posting on this little app and look where it got me. Um, so I would say throw away your excuses, start just posting anything. It does not have to be, stop seeking perfection. I think that's a big thing. People are like, oh, well, I really want to make like this like epic video. And it's like, it's okay if it's not completely polished. Like, getting something up is better than nothing.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, I always laugh even with my account. I'm like, it started and it was like my 5 followers were my family members and my boyfriend at the time, now husband. Like, those were my followers. And then you always think like people maybe with big accounts start with like 100,000 followers, and
Mhm.
every single account started with 1 follower. Probably with 0 at one point. It all
Seriously.
started from 0.
Totally. And I feel like most people's stories are truly the same. It's like you post, and like maybe you don't get a ton of traction. And then one day something hits, and then something else hits. And then, your stuff starts getting shared. So I think, all of those people, as you said, were once in that position too. And stop
Yeah.
the excuses. I would say that, because I've had so many friends over the years who are like, I always wanted to, but the but is what gets me. I'm like, we all have access to the same application. I film it just right on my iPhone camera. I know you have your phone in your hand right now. Like, you can do it too.
Yeah.
Trust.
No, it's true. It's probably been really wild for you though, because I don't know. I think at least with my account, when people are like, "Oh, how'd you get to that many followers?" I'm like, honestly, I think a lot of it was like getting in at the right time as well. I feel like when people say, "I want to be an influencer," which I don't even really consider, I'm more like an art account. I don't know. But you are full on an influencer, and I feel like I'm like, well, it's way more difficult now than it was. Like, I don't know if you feel that way too. Like, I just feel like there was
Totally.
this golden age of like growing on the internet. And now it's like really challenging. And I feel bad for all these people that try and they're like, well, it's not getting traction. I'm not getting seen. I'm like, I don't think it's your fault. But I'd love to know what you think, because like that's very much so your space.
100%. And I do definitely think today it's harder than, but I feel like I keep saying that, like, in terms of, I feel like I even said when TikTok first came out, I was like, it's harder today than it was, back then. But there was like the golden era of TikTok, I feel like in 2020, when it was like
Yeah.
people truly were blowing up. But I do believe that getting in today is definitely harder than like when I first started posting YouTube videos back in the day, because there was only so
Yeah.
many people making videos. Back in the day,
Yeah.
if you had a million subscribers, everyone seemingly in the world knew who you were.
Yeah.
Now, a million followers? I don't wanna say everybody and their mother has it, but, like, it's
No,
more
yeah.
commonplace, I would
Yeah.
say.
No, it is crazy. It's
I still think it's very
it's
impressive, just
crazy.
so we're clear. I've been posting on the internet for years. I have not reached that, so you are very impressive to me, so just let me be clear
No.
there. I make it
I
to
take 0 offense from that at all. It's wild. Like, every account, I feel like it used to be even, like, hundreds of thousands. Like, if an account had 100,000 Instagram followers, like, 5 years ago even,
Oh,
I'd be
yeah.
like, "That's a huge account." And now you're like, "Oh, it's a big account." It's like, "That's 100,000 people."
Yep. No, the numbers just to get, like, more and more, like, diluted almost. It's, like, kind of strange
Yeah.
way. But I would say that there's still, like, I think that that's another excuse too, is like, "Oh, it's not it's so hard. It's, I don't wanna say excuse, but that's not
I
true.
get what you're saying. That's true.
It's
It's
just
true.
because I see people, like, when I'm out and about in an influencer event in New York City and I meet someone new and I'm like, "So nice to meet you," whatever. Maybe it's my first time, like, seeing them at an event, but then I go home and I, like, stalk their page. I'm like, "Whoa, you have 1,000,000 followers and you started last year," you know? So there are people
Yeah.
who are truly still experiencing that. I don't wanna call it, like, blow up, but, like, and that's
Yeah.
people who blown up, blown up. How about just, like, a community that you're happy with, that gets you and understands you? It doesn't need to be a huge number.
No, absolutely. I always think of, like, McDonald's started making burgers, but then Shake Shack came along and, like, Five Guys came along, like, that doesn't mean everyone else had to stop making burgers, so you could
That's
be
a great
another
way of
burger
putting it.
place.
Yeah. Exactly. In my one of my marketing classes, I remember they taught us like about like the the McDonald's of it all, and then like the
Yeah.
Wendy's, Burger King, and they were like, there are actually benefits to being the like quote like second or third movers, like the other people like kind of following
Oh,
suit from them, because you
interesting.
can learn from their mistakes and learn from like what they did kind of, and like pocket that information as your own. I don't know.
That's
Just
fascinating. I mean,
thought.
no, it's a good concept though to apply to like becoming a content creator as well. Like you get to learn from all the content creators before you, and there are like a million more tools at your disposal now than there even were before. So,
Oh my gosh. I don't even know how I learned how to like post a video, because I feel like there weren't, now there's like tutorials on how to make videos. Like I feel like there weren't even tutorials back then. And I was always very much so a like, I'll workshop it backwards type of person, and I'm sure you two get asked all the time, like, well, how do you make your designs? Or like, I get, how do you even edit? How do you do this? And like completely valid questions. But I feel like I just like figured it out.
yeah, and there is something to be said about that. Honestly, I'm gonna be honest though, I do think you're a genie. I don't know how people edit these videos.
Yeah.
They look so aesthetic all the time and like so like picturesque. Like I try and take one brand photo and it's just not in my blood. It's not in my blood, and I really, though, just have nothing but just add, like, complete awe for the people that can do it. Like, in all your videos, they look so just, like, picturesque, and they're fun to watch, and the cuts are good, and so maybe you could teach yourself, but you also have to have, like, a certain talent for it, which I feel like clearly you do.
Oh, well, thank you. I think I feel really lucky that I definitely, a lot of things like happen for me, like starting at the right time and like finding this thing that like I feel like I was, meant to do and everything. But I can't imagine now. I'm like, wow, I can't even imagine like what else I would do if this wasn't, what I do. So I feel like that's how I know I'm
Yeah.
in the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great litmus test for being at the right place at the right
Happy.
time, doing what you're supposed to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, final question because we try and keep the show short. I don't want to drag on with people, although I have so many more questions I could ask. But do you have a favorite quote and why is it your favorite quote if you do have one?
Yes, I do. Okay. So kind of same theme here. While we have a big thing going. My favorite quote is "Do it for you." So I feel like we are in this world and just this place where you're always trying to prove someone wrong, or maybe do something because your parents want you to do it, or because it's what society expects of you, or whatever it is. And I think whatever you want to do it for you. If you want to, I, you don't owe anybody any explanation or any sort of reasoning for whatever it is. If you wake up and you decide you want to, pursue something, whether it's fitness or posting videos or making quotes, you know, do it for you.
I love that. And there is something to be said that maybe if you do anything for yourself, you really can't fail because even a failure is something that probably fulfilled you and made you happy at the time.
For sure. And let me be clear, my you that I'm doing it for changes all the time. I feel like I definitely go through eras where I'm, more into one thing or another. But I think that that's the beauty of like self fulfillment, I think, and like self love and everything. It comes from like, you know, the only person. I'm not perfect, of course. Sometimes I'm like, oh, do I want to make my arch nemesis, see out what I'm doing? Of course. But for the most part, I would say that most of the decisions in my life that I'm making at this point are, to make myself proud and not, for any other reason.
I love that. That is a beautiful parting thought. Thank you so much, Brooke. This has been such a lovely chat. Tell everyone where they can go to keep up with your work and you and your vlogs and podcast, all the good things.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much. This has been a great, great conversation. Seriously. Thank you for
Oh,
having
you're so
me.
sweet. This has been
uh,
such a pleasure.
so great. I make YouTube videos, clearly, as we're talking about. So my channel name is Brooke Miccio. And can find. I do like week in my life vlogs. I try to post twice a week. And my podcast, Gals on the Go podcast with Danielle Carolyn. We post weekly. That's a fun time. If you like girl talk, just kind of like you're laughing with your friends, a million conversations in one, that's a good spot for you.
I can attest to the fact that it's a wonderful podcast. I love listening to your podcast. It's just like a
Thank you.
fun break in your week. So everyone go listen.
we always say, we're like, you're not going to learn anything, but if you want to just like giggle with your friends and like have a good time, like that's the spot.
Sometimes that's what you need. Like, sometimes we don't need to be learning and being intellectually stimulated. Like, we just need a good time.
The world is such a serious place. Like sometimes you just need to,
100%.
just laugh a little.
100%. Everyone go, laugh a little, have a little break in your week by listening to her podcast. It is wonderful. Brooke, thank you so much again for joining us. This was
Thank
so
you.
fun. To everyone watching and listening, thank you for joining us on the shift. Don't forget to subscribe. Let us know what you think of the episode, and we will see you next time. Thanks so much.